Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Welcome. Today, we're framing the ocean not just as this massive body of water, but as a bustling, wildly complex world full of secret rules, bizarre biological anomalies, and some genuinely incredible survival tactics. Think of this as your ultimate biological field guide to the deep blue. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Masters of Disguise, look at underwater teamwork, explore extreme ocean survival, assess the threat of debris, and finish things up with the Circle of Life. Section 1. Masters of Disguise, Survival Through Deception. Let's see how individual animals use some brilliant deception to navigate incredibly dangerous waters. The sheer creativity of ocean survival is absolutely astounding. Take the frogfish, for example. We actually have records of a frogfish perfectly blending its entire body into a coral reef. It literally becomes part of the landscape, making itself completely invisible to passing hungry sharks. But the mimic octopus? That's where things get truly theatrical. You see, unlike other octopuses, the mimic lacks the ability to squirt ink to escape predators. So what does it do? It compensates by putting on an award-winning performance. It contorts its body to perfectly impersonate highly venomous creatures. We're talking banded soulfish, lionfish, and even a cluster of hissing sea snakes, just to scare off threats. Nature is full of these bizarre biological anomalies. Like, you'd probably think the loudest creature in the sea would be massive, right? Well, actually, scratch that. Enter the snapping shrimp. It's tiny, but it possesses this highly specialized claw. When it snaps this claw shut, it moves so incredibly fast that it actually forms a bubble. And when that fast-moving bubble pops, it unleashes a deafening, knockout sonic boom that stuns both predators and prey. So yeah, tiny body, but a massive, massive impact. Now, these biological anomalies can also seriously affect communication. Humpback whales are famous for singing these complex songs to communicate over miles of open ocean. But researchers once encountered a young humpback, affectionately named Joe, who was swimming completely alone. Why? Well, Joe's nasal vocal tubes were unusually narrow compared to a typical humpback. Because whales sing by pushing air through those tubes, his song sounded completely different. He was singing a uniquely lonely song, and the other whales simply couldn't understand him until a specialized acoustic coder translated his frequency. It just proves how finely tuned ocean communication really is. Moving right along to Section 2, Underwater Teamwork, Pods and Partnerships. We've looked at the individuals, now let's scale things up and see how these animals actually work together. The crucial point here is that the ocean relies heavily on partnerships. It is definitely not a solitary place. We see this all the time through symbiosis, where different creatures mutually benefit from each other, and commensalism, where they safely coexist without anyone getting hurt. Let's look at some really fantastic examples. Just look at the giant sunfish. When it gets covered in itchy parasites, it swims to the surface and just lies on its side. It gets a full underwater spa treatment. Gulls swoop down to eat the parasites from above, while cleaner fish nibble them off from below. Or, down in the Galapagos, you've got speedy red rock crabs catching a ride on the backs of swimming marine iguanas, eating the gunk off their scales. It's a perfect display of symbiosis. Then we have sea sponges acting as bustling ocean hotels, providing a safe home for tiny shrimp, snails, and even displaced whale lice. That's classic commensalism. And of course, orca whales. They travel in these fiercely loyal pods, always pulling their massive strength to help each other through thick and thin. But honestly, the award for the most coordinated team in the sea has got to go to the spinner dolphin pod. These dolphins have this incredible adaptation. They literally sleep-swim. They cruise along the seafloor together on autopilot, resting while they move. But because they're practically sleepwalking, they communicate directions through a highly specialized language of splashes. A specific combination, like a leap, a spin, a double twist, and a splash, tells the whole pod exactly which way to turn to avoid danger, without any of them ever having to wake up. Section 3. Extreme Ocean Survival, Adapting to the Elements. How do these creatures handle the ocean's most unforgiving, extreme environments? I want you to consider this really fascinating biological mystery. Picture a saltwater crocodile, literally the size of a bus. It naturally belongs in warm tropical waters. So what happens if it gets caught in a current and swept thousands of miles away into the freezing, icy Antarctic Ocean? No way it survives, right? Well, because crocodiles are ectothermic reptiles, they rely on their environment to regulate their body heat. So the extreme cold forces the crocodile's body to hit an extreme biological pause button. Its heart rate just plummets, and it enters this deep, suspended sleep where it requires absolutely no food or air for an extended period. It basically turns into a sleeping, bus-sized icicle, protecting itself from freezing to death until it can safely be towed back to warmer currents. Mammals, on the other hand, face a totally different kind of icy extreme. Beluga whales, for instance, can accidentally get trapped deep under shifting, thick pack ice. Because they breathe air, their survival relies entirely on finding these tiny, unfrozen breathing holes in the ice canopy. And since they're naturally shy and easily frightened by the loud cracking of rescue icebreakers, these whales rely heavily on familiar acoustics, things like recorded whale songs or musical tones, to guide them calmly from hole to hole until they safely navigate back to open water. Next up, Section 4, the threat of debris, human impact. We really have to pivot and look at how the surface world is impacting the deep. Listen to this quote for a second. "It wasn't a school of fishes at all, but a big bunch of grimy sea junk." That captures a terrifying reality for pelicans. These birds hunt by spotting what they think is a shimmering school of breakfast from way up high, and then plunging into the water at breakneck speeds. But when human plastic drifts into these large floating patches, it perfectly mimics a feeding frenzy. The pelicans dive full force into a hard, grimy patch of sea junk, causing devastating injuries. These examples clearly show why our impact matters. Human debris is forcing animals into some really dangerous adaptations. We're seeing small triggerfish adopting floating plastic bottles as their defensive homes, totally risking ingestion. But, understanding this impact also gives us a solution. When natural coral reefs are destroyed by violent hurricanes, we can actually step in to build artificial reefs. By taking large, sunken items like old ship hulls and coating them in sticky limpet glue, algae, and coral transplants, we can rapidly jumpstart an ecosystem and provide vital hiding places for vulnerable reef fish. Finally, Section 5, the circle of life, growth and migration. Let's explore the enduring life cycles and epic migrations that keep the ocean thriving over decades. Take the sea turtle. It's a perilous, yet highly predictable life cycle. A mother lays her delicate eggs under the warm sand on night 1. For 8 weeks, those eggs incubate, requiring perfect, steady temperatures. When they finally hatch, they specifically do it under the cover of darkness to avoid being eaten by hungry gulls, using just the moon's light on the water to guide them to the waves. And the most incredible part? 15 to 20 years later, after crossing entire oceans, those grown turtles will navigate back to that exact same stretch of beach to start the whole cycle all over again. Growth and migration are really the twin engines driving the whole ocean. Down in the tide pools, growth means a tiny hermit crab, who can't grow its own shell, has to constantly search for and try on larger abandoned shells just to protect its vulnerable, growing body. Out in the open water, migration means massive humpback whales traveling thousands of miles to summer feeding grounds. Once there, they collaborate to blow these colossal circular bubble nets that trap millions of tiny krill in a tight column for a massive feast. So to wrap things up, we've seen just how meticulously balanced this world is, from the tiny snapping shrimp to the massive sleeping crocodile. From mutual partnerships to avoiding dangerous debris, the ocean isn't just a body of water. It's a living, breathing network of secret rules and fragile alliances. So knowing what you know now, what part will you play in protecting this incredible underwater field guide? Thanks so much for watching this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.